Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Parent Guide, helping your teen overcome pornography addiction. I'm Matt Bulkley, psychotherapist and founder of Therapy Associates and Star Guides in St. George, Utah, where I specialize in helping teens and their families break free from pornography addiction, dependency, and the emotional struggles that fuel them. And if you're a parent who is lying awake at night wondering why your teen can't seem to put the phone down, why they're irritable, the Wi-Fi drops, or why pornography has quietly become their go-to escape, let me tell you, you're not alone, and this episode is for you. Here's the hook that keeps me up at night, too. Recent data shows the average age of first exposure to pornography is 12, oftentimes younger, and with 70% of teens intentionally viewing it by their mid-teens, many as early as 13. At the same time, teens are averaging 7+ hours a day on screens. But the scariest part isn't just the content that they're seeing, it is what they are losing. The simple, life-changing ability to just be present without constant distraction. When teens can't sit with boredom, stress, or uncomfortable feelings for even 5 minutes, pornography and screens become the default escape hatch. And that cycle is quietly wiring their brains for addiction. Today, we're turning that around. We're diving deep into the link between tech dependency and lost coping skills. What just being present actually looks and feels like, why teens struggle so hard with it. And I want to give you 5 practical steps that you can start this week. The research proves it works, and clear signs it's time to get extra support. So I'll weave in real case stories from my practice. Of course, names changed for anonymity, so you can hear exactly how this plays out and how families have turned it around. Parents, this isn't just theory. These are tools that I use every day with families just like yours. So stick with me, and hopefully by the end, you'll have a clear plan to help your teen start to rebuild emotional resilience and protect them from pornography's grip. So let's get started. Parents, don't get me wrong, technology is incredible. It connects us, it teaches us, it entertains us. But for far too many teens, it has become a crutch that quietly steals something essential. That is their ability to feel okay just being in the present moment. In my practice, parents often come in saying something to the effect of, well, he's on his phone or computer 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, and sometimes 10 or 12 hours a day, and sometimes all day long and all night long. And other parents will tell me things like, well, I'm worried about the porn that I found in his history. And what they don't always see at first is that the excessive screen use and the pornography, it's really two sides of the same coin. Both are from feelings that the teen does not yet have the skills to handle. So let me share a real case. I worked with this 16-year-old boy. Let's call him Evan. His grades were slipping. He was irritable. He was snapping at his parents. And his mom had discovered that he had been watching pornography daily for over a year. So when we started therapy, Evan told me, well, I feel empty without my phone or something playing. And porn is really the only thing that shuts my brain up when I start to feel stresses, particularly from school. And over time and through our work, we discovered the root wasn't necessarily bad choices. It was actually untreated anxiety in a brain that had been trained to reach for instant stimulation instead of just learning to sit with discomfort. So Evan literally could not tolerate 5 minutes of quiet without feeling restless or panicky. And that restlessness was what drove him straight back to porn. And research backs this up powerfully. The study, I've referenced it in other podcasts, a landmark study, 2014 study at UCLA. It took 6th graders to a nature camp for 5 days with no screens, unplugged for 5 days. And when they returned, they were dramatically better at reading facial emotions and nonverbal cues than kids who kept using devices during that time. And so if that is what can happen in 5 days, imagine what 4 months of camping does. And that's actually what our Star Guides program provides. And in this study, the researchers concluded that constant digital stimulation impairs teens' ability to regulate emotions and connect with others. And there's been some follow up studies that have shown that teens logging more than 3 to 4 hours of daily screen time face higher risks for anxiety, depression, and addictive behaviors, exactly because they're not practicing the skill of just being. When that skill erodes, pornography becomes the super stimulant. It's quick dopamine, zero emotional work required, and the cycle deepens and parents feel helpless watching it happen. But here's the good news, we can rebuild it. So let's get real concrete here. Just being present. It's not some woo-woo meditation retreat concept. It is simple, repeatable, and actually incredibly powerful for breaking addiction cycles. It means sitting quietly without reaching for a device, noticing your thoughts and feelings without judging them as good or bad, and accepting that boredom, boredom, I know. So often we think of boredom as the enemy, but boredom or discomfort being normal and temporary and finding a sense of calm right there, right now. So picture your teen maybe on the porch after school. Instead of immediately opening TikTok or YouTube, they notice the breeze on their skin, they hear the birds, they feel their own breathing, and that's it. So no performance, no productivity, just presence. So in the field of psychology, they call this mindfulness. And we teach this through a particular therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, is often how it's referred to, which is simply mindfulness skills every day. We do this particularly in our Star Guides program. This happens all day long, every day. And in the outpatient clinic here at Therapy Associates in St. George, one teen I worked with, we'll call him Daniel, age 15, deep into social media scrolling that had escalated into secret pornography use when he felt lonely. And he started with just 5 minutes a day of, called it a phone-free walk just around the block. And even after just 1 week of doing that, he told me, well, I actually felt calm, like my brain stopped screaming for the next hit. Within a month or so of implementing that intervention, the cravings for both just the constant screen time as well as for porn had dropped noticeably. And that's transformation. Being present, practicing mindfulness rebuilds that emotional muscle that pornography tries to replace. Well, why is this so hard for today's teens? I think there's probably three big reasons that collide here. First, their brains have been trained for constant high-speed stimulation, endless scrolls, notifications, game wins, and of course, porn's supercharged dopamine created a tolerance. So normal life starts to feel boring or unbearable. In fact, when you think about it, some teens today have never lived a single day without a screen. And this is really the first generation that has been entirely raised with instant screen access. Second, social pressures are brutal. The likes, the comments, the comparison on social media makes stillness feel like failure. Many teens tell me, well, if I'm not posting or responding, I feel invisible. It's that FOMO, fear of missing out, drives them to be constantly online, constantly checking the feed, constantly checking the messages. And then third, the underlying emotional challenges, anxiety, low self-esteem, school pressures, family stress make distraction the easiest escape. And without alternative coping tools, tech and porn become the default. I see the pattern constantly in the porn addiction cases that I work on. Another client of mine, we'll call him Marcus, age 17, heavy game user whose sessions always ended up with eventually moving into pornography, going down the rabbit hole to pornography. And he admitted gaming numbs me, but porn is the real escape when the gaming becomes frustrated, when he's not doing well with the gaming, or when the anxiety about the pressure of college hits. And research in the Journal of Adolescence confirms exactly this. Teens who use screens or pornography to avoid negative emotions are far more likely to develop addictive patterns. Well, the good news is, parents, you can interrupt the cycle before it hardens. I've spent years working with families caught in the cycle of tech dependencies and pornography use. And I know it feels overwhelming, but I want to download to you 5 evidence-based steps that can shift the focus from restriction to regulation. Follow me here. So step 1, I'm going to call it model the digital reset. And it's to this effect that teens, they're really good at and actually biologically wired to detect hypocrisy. So if you tell them get off TikTok while you yourself are scrolling through emails at 9 o'clock at night, the message is lost. So the action here, parents, practice loud self-regulation. What this looks like when you're stressed, don't reach for your phone. Say something to the extent of, well, I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed by work, so I am going to leave my phone in the kitchen and I'm going for a 10-minute walk. And the impact here is that you are teaching your team that discomfort is unwanted as it may be, it's manageable without a screen. You model this yourself through your own example. Step 2, call it the establish sacred spaces. And it's going to be this principle that boundaries, they're not punishments. They're actually neurological recovery periods. Research, it shows that physical distance from devices helps to lower cortisol, stress levels. The cortisol is that neurochemical that's the stress chemical. It allows the brain to focus center and the prefrontal cortex to recharge. So the action here is you really do have to start with a non-negotiable. Maybe make it be the table, that there's just simply no phones, no smartwatches, no distractions at the table for dinner. Maybe it's the 9 p.m. curfew where all the charging devices go into the kitchen at night, or all of the devices go into the charging station at 9 o'clock in the kitchen. And the impact here is that it forces the brain to transition from passive consumption into active connection, which is where we want it to be. Step 3, we call it develop emotional literacy. So this is where pornography, excessive gaming act as emotional bypasses. So they numb boredom, anxiety, loneliness, stress. And we have to give teens a different language for their internal world. So the action here is going to be consider using like an emotional wheel. So looks like this. Instead of asking, well, how was your day? Ask, where are you feeling the tension in your body right now? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did that game actually improve your mood? And the impact is that you are helping your team to begin to build self-awareness necessary to stop a compulsive habit before it starts. So it's getting them in tune with their emotions, helping them to feel it, recognize it, and express it. Step 4, I call it replace the dopamine hit. So you cannot simply remove a behavior, you need to replace it. So if you take away the phone, you leave a vacuum of boredom that so often will lead back to old habits, but with secrecy or deceit. So action here, identify, call it high dopamine versus low dopamine activities. This looks like maybe swapping 30 minutes of scrolling for 30 minutes of shooting hoops or sketching or even mindful breathing. And the impact, this helps to stabilize the brain's reward system so they no longer need the hyper stimulants to feel okay. And recognize this takes time. This is going to take time and consistency on your part. And number 5, professional intervention. Sometimes, the habit has become a clinical hurdle. So if tech or porn use is disrupting sleep, grades are tanking, there's irritability and conflict and strain in the family relationships, then it's probably time for a structured roadmap to deal with this. The action here would be if pornography use is causing distress or disruption to daily life, then consider consulting as a therapist or a counselor experienced in teen addiction issues. And we know early intervention can prevent long-term issues. So if your teen is dealing with addiction or emotional distress, then professional help may be necessary. Therapists specializing in adolescent addiction can help you develop and personalize strategies and counseling. We use the Recovery Toolbox for Teens. It's a comprehensive, structured program designed to provide evidence-based treatment along with meaningful guidance and support for both your adolescent and for you as a parent throughout the recovery process. This is a trio of workbooks, includes the Breaking Free workbook, the Parent Guide, and the 101 Tips for Quitting Porn. And you can get the Recovery Toolbox for Teens in the bookstore at our website, therapyassociates.net. and it's the blue version. It's the adolescent version. The brown version is the adult version. And parents, for high risk situations where home based efforts aren't enough, and maybe you've tried some outpatient professional therapy without success, then Star Guides, our Star Guides Wilderness Therapy program provides, call it a clinical circuit breaker, the Utah wilderness to restore trust and emotional regulations. And this would be situations where there's serious safety risks or unmanageable behaviors, things including sexual acting out issues, sexual abuse, engaging in high risk online behaviors, severe mental health crises, things like suicidality or self harm, or debilitating anxiety or depression, or when a teen has become simply entirely unresponsive to your parental influence or authority, and the cycle of addictive or compulsive behaviors can no longer be safely interrupted at home. An intensive, highly structured therapeutic intervention is often essential, and that's where Star Guides Wilderness Therapy offers that type of level of care, a clinically sophisticated wilderness-based program designed to stabilize acute risks, restore emotional regulation, and rebuild healthy family dynamics when outpatient or home-based approaches are no longer sufficient. And this is a proven next step intervention, provides containment, expert oversight, and transformative experiences that can mark the turning point recovery, or the turning point toward a successful recovery. Mondays and Thursdays in the Star Guides field, and I have seen over and over amazing results. Well, parents, let me give you a case scenario here to just kind of illustrate the transformation, see how it looks like in the real world. So want to tell you the story of Leo. We'll call him Leo, a 16-year-old. When his parents first came to me, he was failing multiple classes at school, was pretty turned upside down with his sleep, staying up until 3 a.m. on Discord. And they had caught him multiple times using pornography as an escape. Seemed like it was maybe a social anxiety issue. And the household had become a constant battlefield, hidden phones, broken promises, no trust. So the shift, instead of just jumping towards like punitive, let's take the phone away, had his parents start with the step one. We talked about his dad simply committed to leaving the work laptop at the office, try to eliminate some of the online access. And then they moved to step two, creating a charging station in the hallway where all devices were put after 9 p.m. and started enforcing that with everyone at the home, including themselves, not just Leo. And then the breakthrough came during a step three check-in where after starting in therapy and starting more structured approach to technology management, he finally admitted something to the effect of, well, I only look at it because I feel like such a loser at school. And that honesty allowed them to be able to move into step four, which was being able to more fully understand his struggles with self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy, and a need to help him develop greater competency and confidence in his life. And so at that point, the move was getting him back into some activity. So he was able to jump onto the local high school mountain biking team, which was a great high engagement, real world dopamine source for him. And adding that, the stronger management of technology with the ongoing therapy, the result was great progress. And so where we're at now, Leo's not perfect, but he is aware, and he has his focus back. His grades have stabilized, passing all his classes. Most importantly, he's talking to his parents instead of hiding from them. And so we continue to work on a guided recovery in his therapy. It's working through the recovery toolbox workbooks and participating in individual family therapy sessions. And parents, keep in mind, it's a process. It takes time. It's not an overnight fix, but with persistence, we get to a point of significant improvements. So research proves the idea of just being, that mindfulness actually works. It's not opinion, it's actually science. So refer to a study in 2019, study in the Journal of Mindfulness, found teens who practiced daily mindfulness had significantly lower stress and better emotional regulation. And Stanford research showed that even brief, quiet reflection reduces digital cravings by building tolerance for stillness. This is back to where we need to reconceptualize how we view boredom. And the American Psychological Association emphasizes that learning to tolerate boredom is essential for mental health. Avoiding it actually stunts emotional growth. So again, boredom isn't the enemy. And in fact, learning to deal with boredom is actually vitally important to emotional health and recovery. So in our clinic at Therapy Associates and in our some of the cases at Star Guides, as we implement these practices, we consistently see lower relapse rates with pornography by strengthening the very self-control that the addiction tries to destroy. Well, parents, watch for these red flags, things like using screens or porn to avoid emotions, panic or anger when devices are taken away, dropping hobbies that used to bring joy, things like sleep problems, falling grades, or withdrawal from family or friends. If you see several of these, then you need to act with compassion, not shame. But parents, helping your teen isn't about perfect limit. It really is about restoring their ability to just be, to feel, to process and grow without that compelling need to escape into pornography or screens. So remember, model presence, set loving boundaries, check in on their emotions, help offer alternatives, and then reach out for help when you need it. Parents, you've got this. And thank you for spending this time with me. I know how valuable your time is, and I hope that you have found this helpful and of value. Make sure subscribe for ongoing weekly support, guidance, research, and tips for supporting your teen and their recovery journey. For resources, including the recovery toolbox for teens that I've talked about and information on Star Guides, visit our website, therapyassociates.net, in the bookstore, and for Star Guides, starguides.net. Parents, take care, stay present, and remember, you are the most powerful influence in your teen's life. Until next time, take care.